Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. The US and the UK urge Hamas to accept Israel's ceasefire proposal as Hamas negotiators are set to meet Qatari and Egyptian mediators in Cairo. The G7 holds climate talks in Italy to firm up a target date for phasing out coal from power generation. India summons Canadian diplomat, protests against the raising of Sikh separatist slogans at an event attended by Canada's Prime Minister. And election fever grips India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi campaigns in Karnataka. Third phase of polling to be held on 7th May. All right, first up, let's get you the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. Campaigning is in full swing for the third phase and fourth phase of India's parliamentary election. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed rallies at Satara, Solapur and Pune in Maharashtra. He also addressed a rally in Bagalkot, Karnataka, while the Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge and Congress General Secretary was in Kalaburgi district of the same state of Karnataka, and Rahul Gandhi addressed rallies in Chhattisgarh and Gujarat.
Intense campaigning is underway for the third and fourth phases of polls for India's general elections. On Monday, India's Prime Minister was in Karnataka as well as in Maharashtra. In Karnataka, Prime Minister held rally in Bagalkote, while in Maharashtra, Prime Minister addressed public meetings in Satara and Solapur. Prime Minister slammed the opposition bloc for 5 years, 5 PM's formula.
अब एक नया फॉर्मूला लाए हैं। ये फॉर्मूला लाए हैं 5 साल में 5 पीएम, हर वर्ष 1 पीएम। वो जितना खजाना लूटना है लूटेगा, फिर दूसरे साल दूसरा पीएम, फिर वो लूट करेगा, तीसरे साल तीसरा पीएम, चौथे साल चौथा पीएम, पांचवें साल पांचवा पीएम। क्यों भाई?
BJP leader and Union Home Minister Amit Shah held public meetings in Jhanjharpur and Begusarai in Bihar. Amit Shah promised to implement Uniform Civil Code if his government comes back to power.
ये कहते हैं हम वापिस आएंगे, मुस्लिम पर्सनल लॉ लाएंगे। अरे लालू जी, आपको वापिस आना भी नहीं है और पर्सनल लॉ आना भी नहीं है। पूरे देश में यूसीसी लागू करने का काम भारतीय जनता पार्टी करेगी भाइयों, भारतीय जनता पार्टी।
Later in the evening, Home Minister and BJP leader held a roadshow in Guwahati in Assam. BJP President JP Nadda addressed a public meeting at Kotaguden in southern state of Telangana. Opposition parties too are leaving no stone unturned to woo the voters in their favor. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi addressed a rally in Patan in Gujarat. He addressed another public meeting in Bilaspur in Chhattisgarh.
कांग्रेस पार्टी अब एक नई योजना लाई है, महालक्ष्मी योजना। हिंदुस्तान के गरीब परिवारों की लिस्ट बनेगी। करोड़ों परिवार हैं, सबकी लिस्ट बनेगी। हर परिवार में से एक महिला का नाम चुना जाएगा और फिर उस महिला के बैंक अकाउंट में साल के 1 लाख रुपए कांग्रेस पार्टी डालने जा रही है।
Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, along with Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, addressed a joint rally in Sedam in Kalburgi district of Karnataka. In Uttar Pradesh, Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav was in Etah, where he said this election will decide the future of coming generation.
ये 14 में आए थे और 24 में चले जाएंगे। इन्होंने बहुत अन्याय किया है, बहुत लोगों को तकलीफ परेशानी पहुंचाई है।
In Telangana, AIMIM chief and candidate from Hyderabad parliamentary seat, Asauddin Owaisi held a door-to-door election campaign in Hyderabad. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
So that was a roundup of all the political rallies that were held on Monday. Next, DD India's Sakal Bhatt delves into the political dynamic in Guwahati, the capital of the northeastern state of Assam, ahead of the third phase of election to be held on the 7th of May.
Team Pol Pulse has reached Guwahati. Welcome to the gateway to northeast of India. We are at Kamakhya Temple here in the heart of Guwahati at the top of Nilachal Hills. Kamakhya Temple, one of the most revered and oldest places of worship. Any visit to Assam or perhaps any visit to Guwahati is incomplete without paying visit to this place from where I'm reporting from. Why is it important to vote?
ভোট দিব লাগে কি নাগৰিকৰ কাৰণে নাগৰিকত্ব পাৱাৰ কাৰণে দিব লাগে ৰাইজৰ যাতে ভাল হয় চৰকাৰখন ভাল আহিলে ভাল লাগে
Guwahati is one of the fastest growing and one of the largest cities in the northeastern state of Assam. In fact, one of the important port city or port riverine city on the southernmost banks of mighty Brahmaputra River.
लोग ऐसे वोटर है जो डेवलपमेंट हो, जो आपका हम लोग का काम हो, जो ऐसे एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन का कुछ काम हो, स्किल डेवलपमेंट हो, वो सब मुद्दे देख के ही हम लोग वोट करेंगे।
अभी जब जो डेवलप दिखा रहा है तो हमको तो उसी को चुनोगे।
As far as the youth bulge of Northeast is concerned or youth electorate of Northeast is concerned, they say they play a significant role.
Voting is our right. It's our right to vote and we need to vote for a change.
असम बदल गया है, असम बदल रहा है और भी अगर बदले चेंज हो और डेवलप्ड हो तो और अच्छा लगेगा। जो लोग बहुत गांव के अंदर से आते थे आजकल उन लोगों के पास ट्रांसपोर्टेशन की सुविधा है और हेल्थ में जाए तो आप देखिए कि लोग को अच्छा चिकित्सा मिल रही है वहाँ पे।
Two issues are, I think, major issues. One is the development issue. Another one is the corruption issue. At one point of time, we have to wait around, say, 40 years for one more bridge on the Brahmaputra. Then again, 15 years for the next one. Now we are getting 3 more bridges within 5 years.
Well, it is once again a very, very intense battle royale between the ruling dispensation of the BJP and the opposition Congress party, of which Assam used to be once upon a time stronghold. This is Sakal Bhatt reporting from Brahmaputra riverfront in Guwahati in Assam with camera person Rahul Chopra for DD India.
All right, we'll get you the full complement of reporters on the ground covering the elections in various states of the country. We'll get you ground reports from Assam, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Let me first go across to my colleague Tapas Bhattacharya, who is standing by at Kokrajhar in the northeastern state of Assam. Tapas, we saw your report earlier in the day about the Bodo people in Kokrajhar and what it means for the locals. Talk to us a bit, if you will, about the Bodoland agitation so that viewers joining us from around the world know more about Kokrajhar and its recent history. Now, who are the Bodo people? What was the agitation all about and how's the situation now as we speak?
Right, so Bodo people are the one who you could very well say that they are the original, inhabitants of the Kokrajhar or the nearby places. In fact, one of the many tribes in Assam, for that matter, and they have been talking about separate Bodoland in this particular area for a long period of time. In fact, it goes almost way back to 1929 when the Simon Commission, the British Simon Commission came, and the first time they probably put forth their views and their demand, but that didn't work out at that time. And from 60s to 70s and then 80s, it became a major movement, especially quite a volatile student movement, which caused a lot of problem in this particular part of the country. Now, 3 accords have been signed with the Bodoland, Bodo people and the centre and the state government. The third one came out in 2020. What I can tell you is that it used to be quite a bloody affair in this part of the state. In fact, 2012, 2014, 2016, there was a lot of ethnic clash that took place, resulting in loss of numerous lives. So it was a pertinent point that the centre government and the state government worked to resolve, and the third Bodo Accord kind of sealed that conflict in many ways. And what we can tell you is that in the last 3 to 4 years, there hasn't been any armed conflict. There hasn't been any ethnic clash that took place between Bodo and non-Bodos people, especially the other communities that are prevalent there. In fact, have gained prominence over the last few years. Now, that's in short, that's a summary of the Bodo history and their struggle and their point. But now coming back to what to expect in this particular general election, what we see is that for the first time we don't see any graffiti or for that matter any question of a separate Bodoland. That's the first in all these years of election that we have seen. What the Bodo people, or for that matter all people from the Kokrajhar in Assam, are asking is development. There is a high literacy level. They are asking for development both in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, in terms of providing employment. So those are the major things that have come to garner major areas in this particular area. So there is NDLI, there is Congress, and there is BPL. The three, there is a tri-party sort of a fight that is currently going on, and they're working. The people in Kokrajhar are keeping their cards close to their chest to make sure that they vote at the right time and to the right candidate.
All right, Tapas, thank you. That was Tapas Bhattacharya reporting from Kokrajhar in Assam. Right, from Assam, let me now take you to the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh and Firozabad in particular, where my colleague Amritpal Singh is standing by. Amrit, if you can hear me, how's the campaigning coming along where you are? What's the political landscape like in the seats that will go to the polls in the third phase of election on the 7th of May?
Ramesh, there's hectic campaigning going on from all political parties, all political players. A sense of the 10 constituencies that are going to polls on the 7th of May, the third phase. It's different from phase 1 and phase 2 in the sense that where phase 1 and phase 2 essentially are very Jat dominated. Jat plays a very important role in Indian politics, more so in Uttar Pradesh. This is a Yadav land, Yadav dominated. Yadavs constitute or are one of the dominant castes in these places: Sambal, Manpuri, Hathras. Though Agra and Hathras are the two constituencies out of the 10 which are reserved. The others like Manpuri, Sambal, these are general constituencies. Now, Yadavs is one factor. Even in areas like Sambal, Muslims are a dominant factor. In Agra, there is a sizable Muslim population. Now, why I mention that? Because Muslim Yadav combined is what is traditionally seen as the vote bank of the Samajwadi Party. The BP did well here both in 2019 and in 2014. In 2019, they got 8 out of the 10 constituencies that are going to polls. In 2014, at 7. So they are a dominant force, but at most seats it is a contest between, a two-way contest between the Samajwadi Party and the BJP, while on 3 seats out of the 10, the BSP is also in the fight. So it's a three-cornered contest on at least 3 seats to the BSP candidates on all 10, but it's widely perceived that on 3 they are they are strongly contesting. Dimple Yadav, the daughter-in-law of Mulayam Singh Yadav, who had won the Mainpuri seat in 2019, but then he died, and Dimple won in the bypoll, is again a contestant against BJP's Jaiveer Singh Thakur, who's banking on the Thakur vote or the Rajput vote. So caste is playing a very important role. Of course, there are other issues about development and local issues like where I am in Firozabad. There is a big glass industry, so there are issues, regulatory issues that they're facing in terms of global competition, global supply chains being disrupted because of the ongoing 2 global wars. So those issues matter, but finally the sense that one gets on the ground is that caste combination is going to play a very important role to decide the outcome of who rules the roost in these seats that go to polls on the 7th of May. Ramesh?
Amrit, thank you. That was Amritpal Singh reporting from Firozabad in Uttar Pradesh. So we've covered Assam and Uttar Pradesh. Let me now take you to the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, where Akshay Dongre joins us from the capital city of Bhopal. Akshay, if you're with us, give us a flavor of the campaigning in Madhya Pradesh. Any key contests to watch out for in the next phase of election?
Well, the political rallies, the campaigning, the canvassing of the political leaders, making promises, bringing out manifestos and talking about the issues of the local people. The poll campaign has kick-started. In fact, in the second phase as well, seats went for poll. This time around, there are 9 Lok Sabha seats that will be going for polls on 7th of May. Now, when we talk about a key contest, perhaps some of the most important, some of the key contests are here taking place in the third phase, Ramesh, because if we talk about seats including Guna, Vidisha and Rajgarh, they have some heavyweights contesting from these seats. For example, from Guna, the Union Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia, who is from also the royal families of Gwalior, he is contesting from Guna. He was earlier in the Congress party, then he switched to the Bharatiya Janata Party. We have the 3-term Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, contesting for the first time for a Lok Sabha seat from Vidisha, and then we also have a former Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh from the Congress party, Digvijay Singh, who is contesting the election from Rajgarh. So these are some heavyweights that will be contesting election this time around. But when we talk about the political scenario, or rather the history of Madhya Pradesh when it goes for Lok Sabha seats, then it has been heavily dominated by the Bharatiya Janata Party. Because if we look at the last election, 2019, out of 29 Lok Sabha seats, BJP managed to gather 28. Congress just got 1. In 2014, the Bharatiya Janata Party got 27 seats, and Congress party won only 2 seats. And even if you go back further, in 2009, even when the Bharatiya Janata Party had lost and the Congress party had won the Lok Sabha elections, the UPA had won, even then, the state of Madhya Pradesh gave 16 out of 29 seats to the BJP and only 12 to the Congress party. So it is a state that is heavily dominated by the politics of the Bharatiya Janata Party. We have been seeing that it has been close to perfect when it comes to winning seats. But this time around, the Congress party has also exerted a lot of force as far as the politics is concerned. But with one of the most popular face of Madhya Pradesh in terms of leadership, that is Shivraj Singh Chauhan, who has been the Chief Minister of the state for last 3 times, barring the one time when the Congress formed the government. But it is going to be extremely important to watch that how the chief minister has served for 3 times as the chief minister of the state. How will he going for polls, and what will be the response of people from Vidisha? So these are certain seats that will be very interesting to watch. As far as Bhopal is concerned, there is Alok Sharma, the Bharatiya Janata Party candidate, and then Arun Chaudhary from the Indian National Congress that will be going going head to head as far as the elections are concerned in the capital city. But yes, it's going to be quite interesting to see how the state of Madhya Pradesh votes this time around, given the fact that a lot of issues of people that have been there for decades have been solved in the past 10 years.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Akshay, thank you. Akshay Dongre reporting there from Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh. So from Madhya Pradesh, let me now take you to Goa. Now, as Goa goes to the polls on the 7th of May, campaigning is in full swing with focus on infrastructure development and its ecological impact. DD India's Jessica Taneja spoke with the state's Chief Minister Pramod Sawant ahead of the crucial parliamentary election. Take a listen.
Goa Chief Minister, Mr. Pramod Sawant, thank you for taking our time and speaking to DD India. You're here to meet the constituents of Kalangut and North Goa. What are the key concerns that you will address for the people, and what will the MPs be doing for the people here when they get elected? What are the priorities for the MPs here?
Especially for the Goa, more than 35,000 crores of rupees Modi ji had given for the state. The major infrastructure is in Manohar International Airport, the Ayush Hospital in the Dhargade, the National Highway from the Polem to the Patra Devi, the Atal Setu, the 3rd bridge, and the Zuari is the 2nd bridge. Here is in our Agwa Jail Museum, which is the special project in the Kalangut constituency, which is given by the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. Also for the our old Goa church, there is a beautification of the church. This time we are spending more than the 17 crores of rupees especially for the exposition.
What more efforts are being made this time to clinch victory in the south?
Though ex-chief minister from the Congress, they have shifted to the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is Mr. Digambar Kamath and Ravi Naik. ये तो अभी भारतीय जनता पार्टी के साथ है. जो मेरी सरकार ने 10 साल के लिए जो काम किया है वो लोग देख रहे हैं और 100% सबका साथ सबका विकास ये सबको लेके हम आगे जा रहे हैं. So definitely the South Goa people will vote this time for the Bharatiya Janata Party.
That was the Chief Minister of Goa, Pramod Sawant, telling us that the BJP is confident about securing a win in South Goa, while he continues on his campaign trail in North Goa here in Kalangut to meet the constituents here. This is Jessica Taneja with Saurabh Bakshi for DD India in North Goa in Kalangut.
Right, so that was all about the great Indian election. Moving on for now. India conveyed a strong protest over separatist slogans raised during an event in Toronto that was addressed by Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The Canadian Deputy High Commissioner was summoned to the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi with regard for the raising of separatist slogans on so-called Khalistan at an event which was being personally addressed by the Prime Minister of Canada. The Government of India's deep concern and strong protest was conveyed at such disturbing actions that were allowed to continue unchecked at the event. This, it said, illustrates once again the political space that has been given in Canada to separatism, extremism and violence. It said their continued expressions not only impact India-Canada relations, but also encourage a climate of violence and criminality in Canada to the detriment of its own citizens. Still to come on DD India NewsHour. Russian forces advance in Ukraine's east, gaining better positions in Kharkiv and repelling a number of Ukrainian attacks. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg meets Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv. And Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez decides to continue as the country's leader.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. In other news from West Asia, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken called for an immediate ceasefire during his 7th visit to West Asia after the 7th October Hamas attacks in Israel and the subsequent fighting in Gaza. He spoke about it at the US Gulf Cooperation Council meeting at Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Blinken urged Hamas to swiftly accept Israel's latest and extraordinarily generous proposal for a Gaza truce. The GCC also called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Raghav Kumar Jha has more.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Saudi Arabia Monday morning for the first part of a wider Middle East tour. He met Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud in Riyadh. Blinken underscored the need to avoid further escalation in the region and discussed ongoing efforts to reach an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Saudi Arabia was his first stop on a broader trip to West Asia to discuss issues including the governance of Gaza once the war with Israel ends. He attended the US Gulf Cooperation Council meeting in Riyadh. At this meeting, Antony Blinken said that the United States has seen measurable progress in the humanitarian situation in Gaza over the past few weeks, but urged Israel to do more in this direction.
The most effective way to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, to alleviate the suffering of children, women and men, and to create space for a more just and durable solution is to get the ceasefire and the hostages home. We have seen measurable progress in the last few weeks, including the opening of new crossings, increased volume of aid delivery to Gaza and within Gaza, and the building of the U.S. Maritime Corridor, which will open in the coming weeks. But it is not enough.
The Gulf Cooperation Council called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and said that the world must take a clear stand against the use of aid as a card in this conflict.
We reaffirmed the firm position of the Gulf Cooperation Council calling for an immediate and sustainable ceasefire and the cessation of Israeli military operations throughout Gaza, including Rafah, and ensuring access to all humanitarian and relief assistance and the basic needs of Gaza residents.
Antony Blinken also attended a special meeting of the World Economic Forum in Riyadh, where he urged Hamas to swiftly accept Israel's latest and extraordinarily generous proposal for a Gaza truce to secure the release of hostages. Hamas negotiators are expected to meet Qatari and Egyptian mediators in Cairo on Monday to deliver a response to the phased truce proposal Israel presented at the weekend.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas. They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly. So we're looking to that, and I'm hopeful that they will make the right decision.
Blinken is expected to bring together Arab countries with the European states and discuss how Europe can help the rebuilding effort of the Gaza enclave. Raghav Kumar Jha's report for DD India.
From one conflict to another, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg met Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev on Monday. In a joint press conference, Zelensky said that the process of moving vital US weapons to Ukraine needs to be faster.
Today I don't see anything positive on this point yet. There are supplies, they have slightly begun. This process needs to be speed up. And the third and most important point is that it is one question, whether there is money. This is very important and we are thankful to our partners. but it is very important what we receive for this money.
For his part, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said that the alliance is working hard to meet Ukraine's needs and that NATO allies are looking into what more they can do.
Other allies are looking into what more they can do, and I expect new announcements soon. So we are working hard to meet Ukraine's urgent needs. And I have been clear that if allies face a choice between meeting NATO capability targets or supporting Ukraine, they should support Ukraine. So now our responsibility is to ensure that these announcements are turned into real deliveries, physical deliveries of weapons and ammunition as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, Russian forces advanced at points along the front line in Ukraine on Monday, taking a village in the Donetsk region, gaining better positions in the Kharkiv region and repelling a number of Ukrainian attacks. Russia controls about 18% of Ukraine in the east and south and has been gaining ground since the failure of Kyiv's 2023 counter-offensive to make any serious inroads against well-dug-in Russian troops. Russia's defense ministry said its troops had taken the village of Semenivka, northwest of Avdiivka. Russia said it had defeated Ukrainian forces and foreign mercenaries in a number of other villages in the area. And DD India's Dasha Cherneshova has more from Moscow. Take a listen.
Well, what we have heard from the Kremlin is the certainty that the so-called special military operation in Ukraine will succeed. And the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov most recently made his comments saying that Russia does have the upper hand on the battlefront and this momentum has to be only strengthened. We also have heard from the Russian authorities that the supplies of Western ammunition and weapons to Ukraine will only extend the conflict, while Russia will continue to target the warehouses where this ammunition is stored with a high precision weapons. And obviously the rhetoric we are getting from Moscow suggests that Moscow is willing to continue fighting as long as it takes to make sure the goals of the operation are achieved, with Moscow also insisting that the Western countries do not really care about the fate of the Ukrainian people, while caring only about inflicting the so-called strategic defeat over Russia. That's why Moscow says it cannot afford to stop fighting and it will continue with its operation by the military means, while the possibility and the grounds for the negotiated solutions are not there yet, even though Moscow insists it is open should Ukraine be ready for those talks.
In some other news from Europe, a two-day G7 ministers meeting on climate, energy and environment is underway at Turin in Italy. Italy, which heads the G7 rotating presidency this year, is pushing for an agreement among the 7 wealthy nations to set a target date for phasing out coal from power generation. Such an agreement would be a step closer to the goals decided by the COP28 United Nations Climate Summit in Dubai last year. The energy ministers meeting, hosted by Italy, which holds the rotating G7 presidency this year, runs on Monday and Tuesday in the 17th century Veneria Palace, a former royal residence outside Turin. So as we reported, the energy and environment ministers from the group of 7 countries are meeting in Italy to discuss their commitments to fight climate change. Now, this meeting happened against the backdrop of protests across the city of Turin, which hosted the ministers. Alex Cadier reports.
Well, we saw some pretty tense scenes in the streets of Turin. We saw protesters blocking a highway there and burning pictures of the leaders of those G7 countries, Italy, Canada, France, Germany, the United States, the United Kingdom and Japan. Italy, of course, holding the rotating presidency of the group of 7 of those G7 countries and hosting this meeting of environment and energy ministers. And their goal is to start working on delivering their promises from the last COP, the last climate conference just a few months ago, and that is a challenging road ahead, it has to be said. All G7 countries so far are on track to miss their emission reduction targets for 2020. Now, Italy's Environment and Energy Minister said that the country and the G7 have a responsibility to their citizens to do better when it comes to climate, when it comes to the energy crisis, and to do better towards their responsibilities for countries that will be more vulnerable to climate change around the world. Poorer countries, which we know will be disproportionately affected by the negative impacts of climate change. But Italy in particular feels that very strongly, with an increase in wildfire and climate disruptions over the last couple of years. They say, the Italian ministers say, they have to put that priority very high on the list to tackle the climate crisis. But clearly, as we saw the frustration by those protesters in Turin, expressing their anger at those leaders, accusing them of having failed to tackle the climate crisis, the pressure on those ministers, the pressure on the G7 leaders is on, and so far they seem to be on track to miss their climate targets. Alex Kadier in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
Still to come on DD India NewsHour. A discussion on climate-induced extreme weather patterns that are affecting some parts of the world. Scotland's First Minister Hamza Youssef resigns as the leader of the Scottish National Party.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday 8 p.m. only on DD India.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Now, the world is experiencing intense weather conditions lately. Heat waves, floods and hailstorms have created havoc globally. Here's a report on how the world is coping with adverse weather conditions.
From heat waves to devastating floods, the world is in the grip of extreme weather conditions. In India, strong heat waves are wreaking havoc in several regions, prompting warnings from the weather department to brace for a hot and humid summer.
Means unbearable, simply unbearable. This heat we have not witnessed this last 50 years or something like that. This is tremendous, scorching heat. And unbearable. What else I could say?
Bangladesh is also feeling the heat, with record-breaking temperatures leading to the closure of primary schools and educational institutions in many districts, including the capital Dhaka.
I have never experienced such heat in my life. Yes, summer should be hot, but there would have been gusts of winds and rain. But it's not happening this time. People are suffering a lot.
Philippines has also shut schools and warned of overloading on its power grid, as authorities across Southeast Asia have issued a series of health alerts arising from a deadly heat wave in the nation.
Here in the Philippines, it is extremely hot now. The heat burns my skin. It's not like the usual summer heat that is tolerable. Now I can barely stay long out in the heat.
Extreme weather fluctuations aren't limited to just a few countries. Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan and Singapore are also grappling with scorching temperatures, prompting urgent warnings from weather departments. Meanwhile, in Kenya's Mai Mahiu region, at least 42 people have lost their lives in floods caused by a burst dam, with authorities fearing casualties may further rise.
I have lost my 5 relatives, my mother, my cousin, my 2 nephews, and a neighbor who came to seek refuge here.
Across the border in China, nature's fury is on a full display, with a heavy hailstorm hitting Fuzhou, snow covering parts of Hebei province, and a deadly tornado tearing through Guangzhou. As Southeast Asia navigates through the tumultuous seas of climate change, the world's attention turns to Turin, Italy, where a 2-day gathering of G7 ministers is underway, focused on addressing the urgent issues of climate, energy, and the environment, signaling hope for collective action in the face of adversity.
All right, joining me is Dr. Vibha Dhawan. Dr. Dhawan is the Director General of the Energy and Resources Institute. It's a not-for-profit policy research organization working in the fields of energy and environment. It's headquartered in New Delhi. Dr. Dhawan, welcome to DD India News Hour. I have 2 fundamental questions to ask of you. One, some of us are guilty of using the words weather and climate interchangeably. For the benefit of viewers who are not familiar with the intricacies of the issue at hand, would you tell them about the difference between the two?
Yeah, when you talk of weather, we say that in India we have 4, Delhi has 4 main weathers. And within that, it is that it's spring, it's summer, it's winter. So that way we know this is going to be the temperature change during different months of the year. So that is weather of a particular place, like Mumbai has more of humidity and so on. But when we talk of climate change, it is that how this weather is changing and the extremes, because it's not the average temperature, it is that what kind of rainfall or what kind of temperature we are witnessing on different days. So what is happening due to the changing climate is, yes, the overall temperature of the planet will go up, and that's what we are trying to curb.
Okay.
We initially said 1.5 degrees, we are saying 2 degrees, 2.5, 3 degrees. So that is the overall change in the weather or temperature of the world. But then when we talk of climate change, it is the extremes, and it is that what kind of humidity pattern, what kind of temperature patterns we are going to face in a particular region because of the changing climate.
Which brings me to my next question, Dr. Dhawan. Floods in Kenya and Tanzania, unusually heavy rains in the UAE and Oman, heat wave in India, Bangladesh and the Philippines, tornadoes in the US states of Nebraska and Iowa. Is climate change inducing these extreme weather patterns? Is climate change responsible for it?
See, we are talking of climate change as a threat for many years. IPCC reports, they have very clearly indicated that if the temperature rise is not curbed, the greenhouse gases emission is not reduced, these were the threats which were proposed many years back. And really speaking, now it is coming to reality.
Okay.
Now, some of us we still might say, where is the evidence? And it is very difficult to collect that evidence, experimental evidence, because it is not one factor, it is so many things. Like you talk of emissions coming from vehicles, you are talking of emissions coming from the industry, you are talking of cross-boundary exchange of air. So there are many things which contribute to it. So we don't have experimental evidence to that an extent, but the very fact that it is occurring and it was suggested, or there are experimental proofs that if emissions are more, what's going to happen, we can perhaps link everything to the changing emission pattern or the rising emission pattern and so on.
Right. Another issue I wanted to ask you, Dr. Dhawan, the developing countries in the global south are particularly vulnerable to extreme weather patterns. Lack of funds and technology make matters worse for them. So can the COP29 in Azerbaijan later this year make a difference?
Well, we are talking, or rather this important matter in each of the COPs, it is taken up, it is discussed. Now, and the last COP, we can say it was very successful because we just discussed about the loss and damage one.
Right.
Of course, the details are to be worked out. Now, I'll come to a couple of points because all the time we say it's the developed part of the world which has resulted in industrialization and rising levels of GHG emissions. Very true. And that is why they should also pay for the loss and damage funds.
Right.
Let's also realize the reality because it's hurting me today and therefore I have to take action. Now, where the role of developed countries becomes extremely important is that we have to share the technology. We also have to realize that while everyone wants to go green, where is the capex to invest? So therefore, the banks, they have to come forward. They have to give loans at a subsidized rate because today the scenario is it's much cheaper to get loan for a developed part of the world country compared to the developing part. There it's 2%, 4%, while in none of the developing countries it's less than 10%. So in the lack of capex, the fund that infrastructure development we require, plus the technologies are not available because everyone wants royalty fee, license fee, and so on. They must realize that we have only one planet and air has no international boundaries.
Right.
So whatever will happen in one part of the world is going to have direct impact on other countries as well.
What you just said just now, Dr. Dhawan, gives me a perfect segue into my next question to you, and that has to do with India in particular. Now, India is a land of diversity. It has glaciers, deserts, wetlands, rivers and seas, and a long coastline. Now, how might climate change affect India in particular over the next several decades?
See, I must congratulate the Indian leadership, Honorable Prime Minister Modi and his entire cabinet, because we have already started taking steps in that direction. And that is in terms of setting up of renewable energy. We are trying to reduce GHG emissions, and we are one of the few countries which is still developing, and at the same time, we are saying that by 2070 we will be net zero. And I won't be surprised if we meet this target much before time, because the way we are moving. So we are investing in research. You look at the hydrogen mission, the investment that government is going to make, the entire Sagarmala initiative, which is for the coastlines. So we are working in the right direction, and I will also say that we are a unique country in the sense that we still have to develop, so we don't have to break and then reconstruct. Rather, it is being constructed for the first time. Look at Kochi Airport. It says it's net zero. It's all, the entire power is by the solar energy. So all our new infrastructure is built on the principle of green technologies.
All right, we leave it at that. Dr. Vibha Dhawan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Right, now take a look at what else is making news in India. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar inaugurated the Society of Indian Law Firms building from Bharat Mandapam in the capital, New Delhi, on Monday. In his address, the Vice President underscored India's significant contributions to the economy and its steadfast commitment to strengthening democratic values. India's top court on Monday issued a notice to the Enforcement Directorate on a petition moved by former Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren, seeking interim bail in a money laundering case lodged by the agency in connection with an alleged land scam. Assam Rifles intercepted a huge cache of arms, ammunition and other warlike stores close to the India-Myanmar border in Mon district of Nagaland on Monday. Assam Rifles said that the recovery of these heavy caliber military-grade weapons close to the border area is a major success for the border sealing operation currently underway by the Assam Rifles. Incessant rainfall has led to flash floods in several areas in India's Jammu and Kashmir, with northern regions experiencing flood-like conditions as several houses were submerged in waters and the roads were flooded. The Jammu and Kashmir police has conducted rescue operations in the flood-affected areas of Kupwara district. In some more international news, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced on Monday that he will continue to serve as the country's leader. His decision comes days after Sanchez abruptly announced that he was considering resigning from office after a court opened a probe into allegations of influence peddling and corruption by his wife. Sanchez reiterated his wife's innocence and accused the opposition leaders of spreading misinformation against her. Scotland's leader Humza Yousaf resigned on Monday, further opening the door to the UK opposition Labour Party regaining ground in its former Scottish heartlands in a national election expected to be held later this year. Yousaf said that he was quitting as head of the pro-independence Scottish National Party and First Minister of Scotland's devolved government after a week of chaos triggered by his scrapping of a coalition agreement with Scotland's Greens. He failed to secure enough support to survive a vote of no confidence, which had been expected later this week. As the students' protest continues in the US, Columbia University has warned student protesters to disperse or face suspension as their encampment rages for a 14th day. The college has asked demonstrators to sign a document agreeing to voluntarily leave or be evicted from the camp and suspended from the Ivy League. University president said in a statement that organizers and academic leaders could not reach an agreement that would break a stalemate over the encampment, which the administration says violates university rules. Protesters have vowed to keep their encampment until their three demands are met: divestment, transparency in Columbia's finances, and amnesty for students and faculty disciplined for their part in the protests. The US Supreme Court declined on Monday to hear Elon Musk's bid to throw out part of a securities fraud settlement with the Securities and Exchange Commission, restricting the billionaire businessman's public statements about his electric car company, Tesla. The justices turned away Musk's appeal of a lower court's decision upholding the 2018 settlement reached after he said on social media that he had funding secured to take Tesla private, a statement the SEC in a legal action called false and misleading. Musk's settlement resolved the SEC lawsuit accusing him of defrauding investors. Under the agreement, Musk and Tesla each paid $20 million fines, and he gave up his role as the company's chairperson. Musk also agreed to let a Tesla lawyer pre-approve some posts he made on the social media platform, then called Twitter, before Musk bought the company and renamed it X. And now take a look at what else is making news around the world. Voters in Togo headed to the polls on Monday to elect lawmakers and regional councillors. Voters will elect 113 lawmakers and 179 regional councillors. The Independent National Electoral Commission is expected to announce provisional results within 6 days of the vote. Kate Middleton and Prince William are celebrating their 13th wedding anniversary on Monday as she undergoes treatment for cancer. The royal couple will have a private celebration because of Middleton's health. Prince William wed his long-term partner Kate Middleton at Westminster Abbey on the 29th of April in 2011. The Moscow Zoo opened an outside enclosure for giant panda cub Katyusha on Monday. It's the first enclosure for Katyusha. The enclosure will allow Katyusha to safely explore her surroundings. And in sports, defending champion India sailed to the knockout stage of the Thomas Cup with a 5-0 rout of England in a Group C contest on Monday. India, which beat Thailand 4-1 in its opening tie, notched up a second consecutive win to qualify for the quarterfinals. HS Pranoy returned to winning ways, defeating Harry Hwang to give India a 1-0 lead. The formidable duo of Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty faced a tough challenge from Ben Lane and Sean Vendy in the initial doubles encounter. After an intense battle, the 2022 World Champions bronze medalists clinched a hard-fought victory after a gripping contest lasting 1 hour and 5 minutes. Former world number 1 Kidambi Srikanth recorded a victory over Nadeem Dalvi to give India an unassailable 3-0 lead. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India NewsHour. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to